Speaking of reports I was reading that caught my eye, did you see the one about Mike Norvell? Mike Norvell, the head coach at Florida State, got a big old extension this offseason, an 8-year extension that makes him one of the highest paid coaches in college football. Now, reportedly, this is according to Noel Game Day over at Sports Illustrated, Alabama made a sizable push to land Norvell as Nick Saban's replacement in Tuscaloosa. There was even some worry from the FSU side, especially after former head coach Jimbo Fisher departed from the program for Texas A&M in 2017. That had the Seminoles scrambling to be prepared for all outcomes. This is from Dustin Lewis, by the way, writing over at SI. So the piece starts there and goes on to state something perhaps even more interesting. According to ESPN's Chris Lowe, Alabama athletic director Greg Byrne was focused on Norvell and Washington's Kalen DeBoer from the beginning of the coaching search. Okay, something to understand here. Was Kalen DeBoer a great hire? Yes, I think Kalen DeBoer is an outstanding coach. I think he is going to compete for national championships at Alabama. Because if you can do it at Washington, I have no reason to believe you're not going to be able to do it at Alabama. That's a snapshot of my opinion on the Kalen DeBoer move for the Crimson Tide this offseason here. Nowhere in this piece is Dan Lanning mentioned, who I do know was a target for Alabama. That is someone who was not flying up the odds market as a favorite to be the Alabama head coach by accident. They are not doing that based on rumor and speculation alone. They are going to do that because they know someone somewhere has got the inside track. But Alabama Athletic Director Greg Byrne was focused on Norvell and Kalen DeBoer. Both candidates fit the standard as proven names who had led their respective programs to success while displaying an ability to develop talent. Byrne even had, quote, serious conversations with Norvell and DeBoer the day after Saban retired. I am not doubting that Mike Norvell was in the mix for the Alabama head coaching job. Here's something that I question and that all of you should question as well when you read a report like this. Why is this getting out, and who could stand to benefit from doing so? The people who have the most power in college football are not athletic directors. They are not presidents even. But in college football specifically, the most powerful individuals are head coaches and their agents. And agents love to have this sort of stuff out there. And agents are very media savvy. You don't know anybody's name except for Jimmy Sexton, who I believe is Kalen DeBoer's agent and was the rep for Nick Saban as well. When you see a story like this, my takeaway on it is that, well, Norvell might have been a target, but Mike Norvell also got a sizable extension from Florida State as a result. You know who gets a cut of that particular revenue? That would be the agent. Now, that's a salary, of course, not revenue. That is the incorrect verbiage there on my part. But whenever I read stuff like this, oh, well, he was really in the mix. He was in the running. Coaching names don't get tossed around in a circle by accident. Josh Pate talked about this recently on an episode of Late Kick, and he is absolutely right. And what he was discussing, and I was listening to and thinking, yes, this is absolutely correct, is when a coaching vacancy comes available, yes, athletic directors have a short list of names that they are interested in. They also have a short list of agents who they are going to call to say, would your guy be interested? Or an agent might reach out to an athletic director and say, hey, can you just, maybe put some feelers out? Or, I'll go to my friend over here in the press and say you're looking at my guy for the job so that I can, leverage it to get more money out of his contract in the athletic department here. Coaching contracts are crazy. They're crazy. Jimbo Fisher had to get $75 million. Texas A&M is going to pay him for quite a while because $75 million, even for Texas A&M, isn't something you're going to want to pay right up front. But the influence of agents in college football just cannot be overstated. It is absolutely everywhere. And that's what I felt when I saw this piece of news and I read all this stuff and thought about the carousel that almost was. And, Mike Norvell might have been a candidate. He is operating in the South much more than Kalen DeBoer is. And that's the biggest question about Kalen DeBoer, right? How is he going to fit into the South? How is he going to recruit in the southern part of the country when he was at Indiana, Fresno State, and Washington? We don't know. We don't know. There's still a lot of data to be collected on that particular front. So I just see this stuff and think, man, agents really know what they're doing. They know how to get their guys' names out there, get contract extensions, make it look this way or that way and whatnot. But here's the other thing. And this I do buy. This is a quote, again, in that same article at Noel Game Day from Dustin Lewis, who lays it out all very nicely. In the event that the Seminoles did have to begin a coaching search of their own, they were prepared to move swiftly and already had at least one name in mind. Chris Lowe of ESPN wrote that sources informed him that Ole Miss head coach Lane Kiffin would have been a, quote, prime candidate to succeed Norvell at Florida State. So that question popped into my head. That first one. How much of that is an agent wanting that to get out there? I don't know. Lane Kiffin's fairly well compensated at Ole Miss last time I checked. He's one of the 15 highest paid coaches in all of college football. I think he's actually inside the top 10, and deservedly so. He just off an 11-2 season, in Oxford, a Peach Bowl victory. I mean, he has got Ole Miss in a really, really good spot. I am very high on Ole Miss. Go bet them at our friends over at FanDuel. Over 9.5 wins while you can. I don't know that Ole Miss would ever jump up to 10.5, but they've had a great transfer portal offseason. They bring back their head coach. They bring back their quarterback as well, Jackson Dart, who I think is a stud. Absolute stud. Don't sleep on him, and I don't think anybody is, as a Heisman contender this year. So I love what Lane Kiffin has done at Ole Miss. But I got to thinking about that particular question and how this all could have looked very different. If Mike Norvell had gone to Alabama, if Kalen DeBoer stays at Washington, would Lane Kiffin really have gone to Florida State? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. If you put Florida State in the SEC, the answer is an easy yes. But if you're Lane Kiffin or any coach in college football, are you willing to leave a situation? I think Jedd Fisch just made this mistake, as I'll touch on in a moment. Are you willing to leave a great situation to go to another job that you may perceive as better and may even be better, but isn't exactly a colossal upgrade? Like Mike Norvell going from Memphis to Florida State, that's a colossal upgrade. But how much of a lateral move is Ole Miss to Florida State? Can you say the Seminoles have a better path to a conference championship? Yes, you can. Okay, I'll grant you that. Has Florida State been in more national championship games and in that discussion more than Ole Miss the last several years? Yes, they absolutely have. But Ole Miss is in a really, really good spot going into this year. I like Florida State too. They're one of the favorites in the ACC. I don't think they're quite as good as last year, but certainly the Seminoles should be very good. They use the transfer portal very, very well. But would you rather be in the SEC and have a mid-tier job like Ole Miss, or would you rather be in the ACC, which is obviously viewed, rightfully so, as a lesser conference than the SEC, and be at the top? I don't know if Lane Kiffin is someone that would have made that sort of move. And so this brings it back to Jedd Fisch momentarily in this whole wonderful world of the coaching carousel. So Brent Brennan is now the head coach at Arizona. He was at San Jose State, did a nice job the last several years at a place that historically is tough to win. Jedd Fisch is going to take over at Washington, where he is going to have a worse team in 2024 than he would have had if he'd stayed at Arizona. If Jedd Fisch had stayed at Arizona, he's brought somewhere in the neighborhood of 8 to 10 starters with him. Not Noah Fifita and Tetairoa McMillan, but Jonah Coleman, the running back, Ephesians Prysock, the corner, amongst others, up to Seattle from Tucson. If all those guys had stayed at Arizona, I have stated repeatedly that Utah should be the favorites in the Big 12, and the odds market reflects all of that. If Arizona had Jedd Fisch and everybody that they had from last year who they lost to the portal up to Seattle, Jedd Fisch would have a way better chance to make the college football playoff and win a conference championship. Now, in the long run, you can argue that it'd be better to go over to Washington. You got more money, you got a bigger brand, you got more money for your assistance pool. You can probably recruit at a higher level, though you can recruit decently well at Arizona. I think that move is a long-term play, and that would have been the question for Lane Kiffin. Do you make the Jedd Fisch move and say that's a better job in the long term, even though this season, this team over here would be better than that one. Because Arizona, pre-transfer portal departures, is better than Washington in 2024. They lost 20 or 21 of 22 starters from a season ago, and their head coach in Kalen DeBoer. So if Jedd Fisch hadn't gone there, that roster would be even more deplete. That's the dynamic that these coaches have to deal with sometimes. And yeah, the almighty dollar can be remarkably powerful. And it absolutely was for Jedd Fisch. And he talked about that, saying, look, I can give more money to my assistants. I think that's really important. He's building a high-level staff up there in Seattle. But when these coaches ponder moves, I wonder what their short versus long-term calculations are. Because Arizona maybe would have been my Big 12 favorite. I mean, they housed Utah last year. Now, the Utes are going to be better with Cam Rising at quarterback, of course, but Arizona was a really good team last year and could have been even better in 2024. And Jedd Fisch said, nope, I want to go up to Washington instead. Long-term versus short-term. It's an interesting calculation. Notre Dame's win total is maybe a little bit higher than you think. And I think I know why.